I want to tell you all about an episode of Caillou that I saw once. My cat had been put down a few years ago, and I want to tell you an episode of this very infamous kid show that was very similar to what I had experienced. I was in my room playing on my DSi, and the year was 2009. My cat had been put down the other day, and it was summer vacation. After the summer vacation, I'd be in 7th grade. I guess I was so fixated on my DSi that my mom told me that it was almost midnight and that I had to go to bed. We only lived in a 2-bedroom house as a result of the Great Recession a year earlier, and my 4-year-old brother had to sleep in my room. I always used to wear headphones while playing quietly. We always used to keep the TV on Sprout for some time so he could sleep. He liked Caillou, and honestly, I freaking loathed it. During Sprout's Goodnight show, I saw the Caillou intro playing. However, the title card for the episode was different. This was a Season 4 episode of Caillou, and he had more maturity in previous seasons. I remembered everything from it, and with my thoughts revolving around my head. The title card read, Caillou says goodbye to Gilbert. There was no picture, it was just words. The screen faded to Caillou's house. The sky was dark and gray, and the house was different. It had no front porch, and the windows were boarded up. The color of the house was purple instead of blue. The chimney was also worn down and had no top. I kept on watching. I really couldn't sleep anyway. The narrator wound up saying, "It was a very depressing day at Caillou's house. I don't want to talk about it." I had never seen this narrator this upset before. It then cut to Caillou softly crying in the playroom. He had never cried in Season 4. Caillou, "Gilbert, why did you have to go? We were best friends." I was surprised that this type of show was talking about pets dying. Anyway, Caillou's parents were talking in the kitchen about Gilbert. Doris, "It's sad that we had to put him down today. I just didn't want anything to happen to him while we were on vacation in New York." Boris, "You've told me this story so many times, I want to scream. What about Caillou?" Doris, "Well, he'll be sad, but we had to do this anyway. He does have kidney failure, you know." Boris, "What I hate is that he keeps going up to the bathroom." Doris, "He lost it, Boris. He can't help it." Boris, "Look, I know, Doris. I'm mostly concentrated on Caillou. I wonder how he's doing. I guess I'll go check up on him." Boris then walked into the playroom, where we see that Caillou was crying and Rosie was playing with her dolls. Boris then walked over to Caillou. Caillou, "Daddy, why does Gilbert need to go to sleep?" Boris, "He's sick, Caillou. When we go, Grandpa will babysit you and Rosie." Caillou, "I'm not staying here. Gilbert is my friend. He can't die without me there beside him." I couldn't freaking believe this. Caillou was never like this in any of these episodes. Not even one of his worser ones. Boris, "Do you really want to be there?" Caillou, "Yeah, I don't care if I get scared. I love him." Boris, "Okay, Caillou, calm down. Stop screaming. I hope that you know that this is too grown up for you. Do you understand?" Caillou, "Yes, Daddy." "Alright, let's go get in the car." I was speechless. I watched the rest of the show anyway. It showed Grandma going into the house, and Caillou, Doris, and Boris, and Gilbert in the car. Boris was the one that drove. It was rather silent and boring. After around 12 seconds of driving the car, Caillou had a flashback. It showed Caillou as a 2-year-old with a Season 1 animation. He was with Gilbert, and Caillou looked rather happy. Young Caillou, "I love you, Gilbert. You're the best." Gilbert, "Meow." As Caillou pet Gilbert, Gilbert licks Caillou in return for his love. The screen then faded to white, and Caillou, his parents, and Gilbert were in a green room with a white couch. Gilbert has a band around one of his paws as the doctor walks in. It was rather weird. Doctor, hello. I heard that Gilbert had kidney failure. Alright, first, we're going to go ahead and start off with the procedure. We're going to give him some saline. Then we'll give him the medicine that will make him go to sleep. Caillou, "No, he's not dying!" Boris, "Caillou, cut it out. I told you that we had to do this." Caillou, "I'm not letting him go!" Doris, "Caillou, stop it now. Listen to your father." Caillou, "Alright, fine." Let him die. I don't care anyway. I just don't care. I watched in horror as a saline was injected. Doctor, alright, here's a shot that puts him to sleep. The second injection was worse. I was honestly genuinely afraid. Cartoon or not, this was a really dark and really fucked up. After he had injected the second one, Caillou lost it. He was crying uncontrollably at Gilbert's soon-to-be death. The doctor then checked him with her stethoscope. Doctor, I'm sorry. He's gone now. Boris, Doris, and especially Caillou were all crying. Caillou, you were my best friend, Gilbert. The screen then faded to white, and this wasn't a flashback. Caillou was with Gilbert in a white room with no walls. The room had turned dark, and suddenly Gilbert faded into nothing. Caillou, Gilbert! Where is he? He's gone! Caillou started to walk in a straight motion. However, this scene looked more like a flash on Newgrounds when compared to the show's regular animation. This went on for about a minute or so, with violin music playing in the background. This stopped when Caillou was pale and was almost skeletal thin. Caillou. Gilbert. The scene faded to to Gilbert on a cloud sleeping. A soft heavenly voice chuckled. The screen faded to black with Caillou crying in the background. It then faded to Caillou in a hospital. He was pale and looked like he was about to die. Doris. Caillou, you're too young to die. You're only 7. Caillou was 7 now? Well, it seemed that Gilbert had died around 3 years ago. Boris. We love you no matter what, son. Caillou. I know. I'll get to see Gilbert soon. Rosie. Caillou, love you. Caillou, Boris. Caillou? Caillou. Yes, Mommy? Doris. You were Caillou. What? Doris. Adopted. Boris. We adopted you from an orphanage. You were a baby born with cancer. We couldn't bear to see you suffer without any parents, so we adopted you. Caillou. Thank you. Caillou closed his eyes and stopped breathing. Boris, Doris, and Rosie were all crying extremely hard. I actually felt sorry for him. The episode ended with a shot of them all crying, the credits rolling silently, and they weren't really that fun to watch either. It was just white text and Comic Sans rolling on a black background. I only recognized the names of half of the people in the credits. The other half of the people were people that I had never even heard of. The copyright date was 2005, the year that Season 4 had came out. The screen then turned to static. I watched the static until it stopped after about a few minutes. The regular schedule came on after that episode. The next day I woke up and heard that my brother had strep throat. My dad had to stay home from work that day, and I spent the day, with my dad's permission, to go on the computer and contact Sprout about it. Remembering that it was around 2009, I contacted PBS Kids and PBS as well. NBC Universal bought Sprout in 2013. All three didn't know what I was talking about, unfortunately. I wound up giving up on my search and returned to the normal summer routine. I was still freaked out about that Caillou episode, but not as much as before. I did some research on Caillou as well, but not anymore, because I pretty much gave up. That pretty much sums up this entire thing. I'm not exactly sure why that episode even aired to begin with, but one thing's for sure. That was a really dark and really messed up episode. And that, my little shadows, was Caillou Says Goodbye to Gilbert, a Caillou Lost Episode Creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? Okay, I have to admit, I'm a little bit mixed on this one. I'm not trying to say that it was a bad story, it wasn't, but there were certain things within the story that just didn't exactly make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, let me just go ahead and start off with, the positives first. The one thing that I actually liked about this one was that this episode in of its own self was very realistic in a sense. Something like this could have honestly been done before, and if you've ever watched Caillou, which I feel sorry for you if you have, granted, I'm the same way, but I do actually remember there was one specific episode that involved, a bird dying. And that was pretty much the entire episode, was solely talking about the concept of death. I think that might have been a banned episode. I don't know why, if that's the case, and people are really freaking stupid. But even on that matter, though, I mean, it was banned solely for the fact of the matter that it was, well, like I said, it was talking about death. Now, this episode right here that was being described, I could understand that one being... Well, actually, I still don't think that it should be banned in any manner or in any way, but even then, though, it still could have been done. I mean, I don't know. It was realistic, and it was genuine, and it did genuinely hit me in the feels, which is a good thing, because not many creepypastas really do that. I mean, maybe I could probably call this more of a feels pasta than anything, but it was genuinely heart-wrenching at periods of time. I mean, the whole adopted thing, the cancer, which I guess is kind of obvious, but still. The person who made this story really knew what this story was doing. Now, with that being said, though, there were a couple of negatives that I did have with the story, and this is mostly having to do with the grammar. For one, some of the grammar in of its own self really isn't put out properly. There's actually periods of time and everything that it's just like, a few sentences, a few words in, then pause, then like a lot of periods in it when there really shouldn't be like periods. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. It could have been elaborated on a little bit more on that manner. I mean, and the way that this entire thing kind of more or less went out was just kind of not exactly how like I like certain stories. I mean, especially if they're creepypastas, but I guess it's kind of understandable to an extent. But even then, though, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's fine too. My final rating of this story, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. I'm giving it a 9 because of the fact that the story was really well made. I mean, not grammar-wise, but the story and the whole, everything else, the plot was really good. It actually had a lot of good feels in it, and it's very realistic. I mean, the way that it began and the way that it... And well, actually, I really won't say how it began, because how the hell did that even happen? But even then, though, the ending just kind of helped everything kind of balance out, which is good. Of course, though, the main thing I'm kind of knocking it off for is the fact that the grammar could have been a lot better. But even then, though, that's my own thing. What did you guys personally think about this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? What would you have done to help make this story a lot better? Also, more importantly, let me know all this stuff down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and like always, roll the outro.